Chris, what is our fourth main topic today?
Our fourth topic comes from Paul Doyle. I'm writing in today to ask why you think things are moving so slowly over at the James Bond house. It's been years since we knew Craig was ending his run as Bond. I agree with John, he's the best one ever. But we're still sitting here with no idea who the new Bond is, and the producer just said it's still going to be a while. Why is it taking years to pick a new Bond, and who ultimately do you think it's going to be?
All right, thanks for sending that in, Paul. And yeah, look, there are a couple of big traditions between Hollywood and the fandom. One is who's going to be the next Batman, always asking that question. But even before that was who's going to be the next Bond. Like ever since the days of Sean Connery and Roger Moore and Timothy Dalton and moving on and on and on, everybody's always questioned when one Bond is nearing the end of their run, the question becomes the biggest question of fandom, who's the next one? Daniel Craig has played James Bond, played him for 15 years. And again, to me, my favorite Bond of all time, because I thought he was kind of the perfect mix of the two iconic Bonds. I thought he was like the suaveness of Roger Moore with the badassery of Sean Connery. And so that's why he kind of worked for me. He's not everybody's favorite, but that's perfectly fine. And he has some great films and some not so great films, whatever. But it does raise the question, where is the next Bond? We've known for years that Daniel Craig is leaving. Years we've known. The last movie is now, No Time to Die has come and gone. It's been months since it's been out of theaters. And we are still sitting here asking the question, who is the next James Bond? Well, anyway, Barbara Broccoli, who's of course the shepherd producer, really the high lord guru of all things James Bond, ultimately the one in control of the franchise. She was asked about this while she was attending a Daniel Craig performance on Broadway in a show that she's also producing. And they asked her, who's the next Bond? When are we going to find out? This is what she had to say, coming us from Variety. As soon as Daniel Craig announced in 2019 that No Time to Die would be his fifth and final film as international spy James Bond, rumors began and haven't stopped, swirling about who might take his place. But Bond franchise producer Barbara Broccoli says it's going to take some time before Craig's replacement is named. It's a big decision, Broccoli told Variety at the Long Care Theater on Thursday at the opening of Macbeth on Broadway, which she is producing and in which Craig is also starring. It's not just casting a role. It's about a whole rethink about where we're going. And that is, of course, coming to us from Variety from the producer, Barbara Broccoli. All right. Let's address a couple of things here first. Why is it taking so long? I think Barbara just actually gave the perfect reason why it's taking a while. Because number one, this is the role of James Bond is an institution in Hollywood. It's not just another role. It's not who's going to play the brother in Wonder Twins. It's not that. This is an institution. You're taking on this role. You become a part of a lineage, maybe the most famous one in Hollywood history, the Bonds, and you're the next one up. Also, you're casting a role that you are hoping is not just for one movie or two movies or three movies. You're hoping you're casting your person who's going to be your James Bond for the next 10, 12, 13, 15 years. So you want to be real ready for it. Also, you might want to have the next idea about what your next Bond film is going to be like and what direction your franchise is going before you pick the performer who's going to be the perfect fit for that new direction for Bond. So while I, like everybody else, am also a little bit like, where's our new James Bond? I get it. I get where she's coming from. It's like, we got to figure out our direction. Then we'll figure out our fit. Then we got to be real careful about who we select because we want this person to be here for 15 years. And we don't want to find out that they're slapping barmaids in Hawaii somewhere later on. And they want to make sure they're solid. So,
shut up.
Is that even a term, barmaid?
But barmaid, that's a term.
In D&D?
I was going to say, I'm showing my Dungeons and Dragons playing a little bit. Bard maiden. So I get it. I'm all fine with that. Then we can get into the question of, well, now that we're past No Time to Die, let's actually take stock here and look at who could be the next Bond. Who could we see it? But let's stick with this for now. Rob, you are the biggest Bond fan in this room. And so it has been since 2019. It's been 3 years since we find out officially that Daniel Craig was going to be done. We still don't know who it's going to be. Do you think it's understandable that we don't have a name yet? Are you getting a little bit impatient? I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, 2022 actually represents the 60th anniversary of Bond on film. Dr.
Wow.
No debuted 1962. I think her comment at the end was the most telling about the direction that they want to go in. I think I have often thought that the Broccoli family, Barbara Broccoli and her half brother Michael Wilson, they're getting up in age. I mean, their family business for 60 years has been making Bond movies. I think they really don't know, what do you do with Bond now? How do you take the suave gentleman spy, a product of the Cold War, and update him for our modern era? I mean, the Craig, like you pointed out, his tenure ran 15 years. The world is a different place now.
Even just from when Craig took over.
Absolutely. And I think that you have the Bourne franchise, you have Ethan Hunt's Mission Impossible franchise that looks to be terrific. I mean, the trailer we saw for, let me get this right, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 looks fantastic. Now, how do you update Bond for our modern age and keep him relevant for audiences? I would suspect, John, part of the reason is they're contemplating selling the franchise. I think the Broccoli family's like, you know what? Are we going to spend the rest of our lives till I'm like 80 or 90 making this? Why don't we sell it? Everyone's selling. I mean, you have Bruce Springsteen selling his legacy catalog. The Sting sold his catalog. Maybe it's time for a new regime to rethink Bond, sell it to Amazon, sell it to somebody. I know people are like, well, Rob, how can you say that? But have new blood to come in and completely rethink the Bond franchise, because James Bond is a character that I believe does not belong in the modern age. There's no real call for a character like Bond now, because who's he going to fight? You know, in real life, Elon Musk is a Bond villain. He has rocket ships. He's got electric cars.
He built Twitter.
He bought the world's biggest social media network.
He makes batteries. He has this boring company that makes he's not boring, but he's actually boring boring into the earth. I mean, how do you keep Bond relevant when the real world is caught up with, like, Hugo Drax had a space station in Moonraker? Well, I mean, Elon Musk is going to build a Mars base. Like, what do you do? How does James Bond fight that? How does Bond fight Twitter?
Hey guys, we want to take a second to thank the sponsor of today's video, Policy Genius. Now, when it comes to the topic of life insurance, I get it. A lot of people ask, well, why even get life insurance? Well, listen, if someone relies on you financially, whether it's a child, a parent, or a business partner, life insurance gives you peace of mind that they have a financial cushion if something were to happen to you. Policy Genius is here to help you, and they're going to make sure you pay as little for it as possible. By making it easy to compare your options from top companies, Policy Genius can help you make sure you're not paying a cent more than you have to for the coverage you need. So here's how it works. Policy Genius is your one-stop shop to find the insurance that you need at the right price. Just click in the link down in the description or head on over to policygenius.com/Campea to get started. In minutes, you can compare personalized quotes from top companies to find your lowest price. You can save 50% or more on life insurance by comparing quotes with Policy Genius. And the process is easy because the licensed agents at Policy Genius are on hand through the entire process to help you understand your options and make decisions with confidence. Because ultimately, the Policy Genius team works for you, not for the insurance companies. And you can feel confident with Policy Genius because they don't add on extra fees. They don't sell your information to third parties, and they have thousands of 5-star reviews all across Google and Trustpilot. So again, guys, head on over to policygenius.com/Campea or click on their link down in the description below to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. And thank you again to Policy Genius for sponsoring this episode. Chris, what do you think about this, about the delay that we've had? What do you think it tells us about the direction, if any? What are your thoughts on what Barbara Broccoli had to say?
Well, I think some things are worth waiting for and getting right. And I think that's a great thing that's happening here, is we're not rushing into anything, right? Because then maybe Bond does become a more period piece kind of thing. Maybe it's not a present day hero. Mm-hmm. Maybe we go back in time and we explore those Cold War roots. And also, I mean, we just have to find the right fit for this. Daniel Craig was 38 years old when he took on this role, right? He was 38. A lot of the names that I keep seeing pop around are in their 50s. And when you're thinking of that legacy, right? Are we going to have a 60-year-old Bond? Is that going to be something that happens here? We need to find the right young-ish actor too. And that's going to take some time. I mean, years ago when The Night Manager came out, I was like, this is Tom Hiddleston auditioning to be James Bond.
Yeah. He was great.
And he was so good in that. But is that something that he's going to do now that he's so entrenched in Loki and in the MCU? Is that something that's going to happen? People would always talk about Idris Elba. Idris Elba is 49. He's turning 50 this year. You know, so finding the right
F that
actor.
guy. Like seriously, F that guy for how
Okay.
amazing for how amazingly good that dude looks. That dude looks and his talent and his everything at
So
50.
great.
And
That
his
guy.
voice.
His voice is
I
amazing.
love
Voice
Idris
is
Elba's
I
voice.
could hear him ever since he was Stringer Bell, man. Ever since he was
I didn't
Stringer
even know
Bell.
he was British.
You could just,
Yeah.
I could listen to that dude just talk and just be entertained.
He's amazing. But
Oh,
I know
so good.
some other names that people are throwing around right now in the chat too. Henry Cavill, Richard Madsen. I think Chiwetel Ejiofor would be incredible because he's suave as all heck.
But how old is Chiwetel?
Exactly. That's what I don't know. Is do we have to find somebody who's in their 30s? And is it an established actor? Or do we find some young blood who's out there who we haven't discovered before who just fits this mold? And what is that mold even at this point?
All right. Well, let's for a second here jump over into the Campea classroom, shall we? Let's go in here and let's look at where we're at as far as who the actors are, who they could be right now, and really take stock of where we're at right now. Okay, so one of the names that has been around the longest has been the name of Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy is a phenomenal actor, like absolutely brilliant actor. He can absolutely pull off. He's more in the vein of the Sean Connery kind of the Bond. He would be the ruffian. He would be the guy who will go in, take care of business, kick ass, take names, that sort of thing. So Tom Hardy is one. You brought up the other one with Tom Hiddleston. Tom Hiddleston is another one. That's been around for a while too. And I think Tom Hiddleston has shown very clearly that he's more than just Loki. Right? A lot of people forget the reason he was Loki is because he was actually one of the finalists to play Thor.
Right.
And they loved him so much. They're like, okay, we're giving the Thor role to Hemsworth, but we really like you. How would you like to play Loki? And an MCU legend was born. Here's another one. You brought it up. Idris Elba, right? So Idris Elba, definitely guy, again, he can pull it off. He's kind of like the Daniel Craig kind of Bond. He's the mixture of Roger Moore and Sean Connery. He can play badass. He could play suave. Like he could talk, your pants off. That's
And
what
he's
he
a
can do.
DJ.
And he's a DJ. A good one at that. That's what Bond hasn't been enough of. Hasn't been a DJ
Wasn't
enough.
enough of a DJ.
Here's one that is a name that was really hot for a while, but hasn't come up in a while. Hot Bridgerton guy. What's his name?
Oh,
Who's it? Jean Page Pierre Jean-Luc Picard? I can't remember the guy's name. I can't
I'll look
remember.
him up. I'll look him up.
I like just hot Bridgerton.
Hot Bridgerton guy.
Regé Jean Page.
Regé Jean Page.
Yes.
Okay. And
Ooh, yeah, he'd be good.
Can we leave you alone?
so here's the
Gonna
thing
take my laptop.
with Hot Bridgerton guy is like Bridgerton season 2 just dropped, right?
Yes.
So I was subjected to watching a lot of Bridgerton season 1 again because Anne had it on the TV a lot to get ready for Bridgerton season 2.
As one
Subjected.
does.
I'm so sorry you had to see all those hot people, John.
Yeah.
Oh.
A lot of, just so you guys know, if you don't know, a lot of filthy in Bridgerton.
Yeah.
Season 1 is very, very.
Yeah. A lot of
Yeah.
filthy. A lot of good, old fashioned, wholesome filthy in that show. But I remember, so I did watch a bit and I'm like, you know what? This kid's actually pretty good. He's actually pretty good. And so it's not a bad thing, but his name was really spun around there for a while, but I haven't heard it mentioned in a long time. So I'm guessing he's out of the running, but he is probably the youngest out of the names that we have out here. This is a guy who could play Bond for 15 to 20 years if that's what he wanted to do. So anyway, we're at that. So, okay, right now, guys, here's the list I've got on here. I got Tom Hardy, Tom Hiddleston, Idris Elba, Hot Bridgerton guy. Oh, I
Bridgerton
should
guy.
put up here as well, Tom Spider-Man boy.
Tom
Tom
Holland.
Holland?
Tom Holland, thank you. Can you remember Tom Holland said he went and pitched himself? Remember? We covered that story. He literally, Tom Holland,
Yeah.
went to the Sony executives and said, and gave them a pitch for him as James Bond, and they ultimately turned him down. But with Spider-Man becoming one of the highest grossing films in the history of mankind, maybe they rethink that. Okay, so besides any of these names, Rob, do you got any other names that we should probably throw out?
You had mentioned, Richard Madden, who was Rob Stark in
Oh,
Game of Thrones.
yes.
He starred in the excellent BBC limited series Bodyguard.
Bodyguard.
That show was dope.
It was great,
and
but
he
where
was
was Whitney Houston?
where was Whitney Houston? She was dead.
That's true.
But
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Wow. Wow, Rob. Wow.
Too soon? No, but Bodyguard was the Bodyguard.
That's
This
true.
was just
Just Bodyguard.
Bodyguard. He was awesome. And like, if you guys haven't seen Bodyguard with Richard Madden, you got to give
Very
it a
good.
watch because
It catches you right. It hooks you in right.
yeah,
from the
that
first
opening
episode.
sequence was so like, you know, you're clenched up because it's very tense, but he was terrific in that show. And he, I think in real life, he's really Scottish.
Yes.
So, you know, like Connery was. So I think that could be a good choice.
I got another name to throw in here. How about this one? Henry Golding.
I was going to say the chat mentioned him.
Yep.
Max in the chat brought him up. I would love that.
Henry Gold, it would be a great Bond. It would, number one, it would diversify Bond up a little bit, but he's just perfect. He can pull off all the action. The guy is.
Remember how in The Gentleman, we saw The Gentleman together?
Oh my God, he's so good in The
As a
Gentleman.
villain? He was awesome.
And again, F that guy because he's so freaking handsome. Like, that's a handsome man.
He's a handsome man.
And even though Snake Eyes completely sucked,
Yeah.
he proved he can pull off all the action, make it believable, all that kind of stuff. So that's another name. We got any other names? Because right now, again, we got Tom Hardy, Tom Hiddleston, Tom Holland, Idris Elba, hot Bridgerton guy, Richard Madden, Henry Golding. I'm just forever going to refer to him. I want from now on, like CNN, when Roger is up there, I just want them to put the lower third, hot Bridgerton guy. Just leave it at that. But is there anybody else we should be throwing in here on this list? Anybody?
I mean, I'm sure there's a dozen people
I
we're
was going to say,
forgetting.
the chat's going wild with options, but they're popping them in too
Oh,
fast.
yeah, we should put in here because you mentioned it already. Henry Cavill. And I'll tell you why Henry Cavill is a great name for this. And many of you know this already. Henry Cavill became Superman after being the runner-up to play Superman in Superman Returns, which he lost out to Brandon Routh. And by the way, I love Brandon Routh as Superman.
He's
I really
great.
do. I love Brandon Routh, period. But, you know, Henry is now my favorite Superman of all time. He was also the runner-up to play James Bond behind Daniel Craig. And after seeing The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which, by the way,
Ooh.
is tragically underappreciated.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that movie. After seeing Man from U.N.C.L.E., and you just watch this, you can't help but go, that's James Bond.
Oh, 100%. He was so good as Napoleon Solo.
Yeah. So, I mean, there would be something very poetic about him being runner-up to Superman, then being Superman, being runner-up to James. By the way, before he broke it big, how frustrating must it be to have been Henry Cavill? It's like, you came this close to being Superman, just lost out. I was this close to playing James Bond, just lost out. But I suppose that happens. Okay, so out of these names, let me throw this to you, Rob. Tom Hardy, Hiddleston, Elba, Hot Bridgerton Guy, Holland, Madden, Golding, Cavill. If you had to pick one right now out of this group, and Barbara Broccoli gave you a call, said, I need you to pick one. We've waited too long to make a pick. Who's our new Bond?
Golding.
Golding.
I would pick, you know, because there is a lot of talk about diversity. And I think that the great thing about England, whenever I've gone to England, I'm always surprised that there is diversity there and everybody has a British accent. No, and I'm like, anybody that has a British accent to me sounds smarter and suaver, depending on if it's a posh British accent. But I think Henry Golding would be a really interesting choice. And I think that we have yet to see his versatility as an actor. And because we've seen when he's in Crazy Rich Asians, he's charming, suave, debonair. But when he was in The Gentleman, he was scary as F.
Yeah.
You know, and I would love to see Henry Golding be ruthless. You know, be a more ruthless, rough and tumble Bond. I mean, I think that'd be good. But I'm a fan of Richard Madden as well.
What about you, Chris? They give you a call. They say, we need a new Bond. We need a name right now. We only trust you, Chris Carr.
Of course.
Who's our new
We
Bond?
came to the right person. Good job, guys. Man, because I think Henry would be great. I think John would be a really cool one. He's young. I don't know how he handles action, though, which we saw clips of him at CinemaCon. He's going to be in that Dungeons and Dragons movie, which I know is not the same kind of action, but we'll see how he fights and everything.
Is Hot Bridgerton Guy in the new Dungeons and Dragons?
That's what it looked like. He's in
You know
some
what?
high
You're
fantasy
right. I remember
thing.
us talking about this
Yeah.
on the show. You're right. I totally forgot about that.
Does that mean he's the hot Dungeons and Dragons guy now instead of just the hot British?
We'll
Yes.
find out. We'll find out if he's the hot.
He's the hot Forgotten Realms guy now.
Oh, there we go.
He's got dragon
But
fire in his bones.
I think he could be really great in this. But man, yeah, Henry, I think would be really good because we've seen so many aspects that fall into who Bond quintessentially is. We talked on the show about this in Vegas, that golden truth idea, right? Henry Golding, there is a suave, debonair thing to him, and there's something also a little dangerous about him, and I think that works really nicely.
I think I love your guys' pick. I think Henry Golding would be my second pick. I am going to stick with Big HC. I'm going to go with Henry on this. I just think, especially after watching, number one, I already thought he was a terrific actor from his turn on The Tudors. I thought he was absolutely terrific in that. Obviously, he's my favorite Superman of all time. I love him in Man from U.N.C.L.E. I really think there's something beautiful and poetic, and I think he's just a perfect Bond. But if not him, I also really like Henry Golding as well. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about Robert Broccoli saying, hey, listen, it's still going to be a while before we find out who our new Bond is? Is that understandable to you? And who do you think might be the best one to play Bond now? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.